all the time and questioning our processes, how we manufacture, and it's taking this sustainability equation, people plus profit plus planet, and it's how can I make sure we're growing in those three ways. And sometimes it's not proportional because it's hard to do it that way, but I decided, the people part of the equation for me is the most important. I need to make sure that the people that are making our socks get well paid, that there is an impact on the community, and that I also, as a business owner, I can generate employment, right? Because I guess this is the objective of having a business. It's not only about you, it's about also your community and moving the economy forward.
Welcome to the Feast Over Famine podcast. On this podcast, we're navigating the tension that we find where mission and profit collide. We're talking to CEOs, founders, executive directors, impact investors, and all of what we've identified as the global ecosystem of the social enterprise, business for transformation, business as mission landscape. We're talking to them about the obstacles they face, the strategic challenges they've been through, how they're funded, how they were started, and everything that's happened in between. We are trying to share their story in a way that's impactful to help us all to grow the social enterprise space for the better. Enjoy this week's episode with your host, Ryan Mahaffey.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week of the Feast Over Famine podcast. Stoked you guys are here and really excited for this week's episode. We've got Paola Shaw on the episode today from Tucketts. Tucketts has been a client of ours in 2021, someone we got introduced to. And from the first moment I met Paola, she was like aspiring to be Patagonia, which we're going to talk about, and all the cool stuff they do, but she's got her own unique flavor to that. It's an amazing female entrepreneur out of Colorado doing some cool things, and just have loved working with her. So really excited to share all the awesome stuff that they're doing. We're going to talk about how they're aspiring to be, again, similar to Patagonia and really looking at production quality and ethically sourced goods. We're going to talk about the science of their product and how they're hoping to serve people through that. And we're going to talk about their give back component, where they're using corporate philanthropy and profits to serve causes that need to be supported that way. So Paola hits it on all these kind of angles, and Tucketts does, and just really excited to share that. So Paola, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited we're finally getting around to this.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for having me here today. I'm very excited to share my journey and my dreams with you all.
Yeah, totally. Well, so let's dig in. Like I said, we talked about this, Paula. There's a handful of angles you guys hit on this whole social enterprise side of stuff. But why don't we start with a little bit of your story? Like share a little bit about, your career, your background, how you ended up here, how you ended up caring about some of these things, and then, essentially got into the sock business, right? Which maybe 20, 30 years ago, you weren't thinking you'd be in the sock business, but it's turned out to be pretty cool. So yeah, share a little bit of your story with us, and then we can dive off from there.
Yeah, I'm going to start with your last sentence. 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, I was working for different governments I'm from Colombia. So I used to work for the government in Colombia, and then I studied in Paris, worked in Paris, and then moved to London. Again, I worked for a different government in London. And then I got married, I moved to LA, and it was totally unexpected to be an entrepreneur. I always thought that I was going to, work in an office and work for someone, either a private company or a government. But it turns out that through Tucketts, I was able to make many of my dreams come true, and many of the vision of what a company should be. And then so first the idea of Tucketts. So Tucketts are high performance grape socks. So basically when you do yoga, Pilates bar, sometimes your feet sweat too much, and the yoga mat or the Pilates reformer or the bar floor carpet can become very slippery. And Tucketts was created as an alternative or a solution for that. So it has really sticky grapes that allows you to get the balance that you need to really focus and perform on the workout that you're doing. And more important, Tucketts allow your toes to be free. And this is extremely important because from the toes, there is all the connection between the feet and the brain. And then in the feet, there are 7,000 nerve endings. So as you can imagine, the feet are extremely powerful for the body. And the moment that we cover our feet with shoes or socks, we are somehow breaking that connection. And that connection is extremely important for posture, etc. Later on, we can dig a bit more into the science. But long story short, I moved to LA. I was looking for a job. I wanted a bit of a career change in sustainability. And then a friend of my husband asked me to help her to do a market research to open a Pilates studio. And during that research, one of the 100 things to research were socks. And I decided, I was like, oh my God, I love socks. I love colorful socks, and the socks that are available are boring. And most importantly, I started to observe, and I noticed that people were struggling with the socks. Either they didn't fit properly, they move around, they were the socks that cover the 5 toes, like encase every single toe in a tube. And then people would take too long to put the socks on. So I was like, you're doing a barefoot workout. We need some type of barefoot sensation. And I had the idea of being inspired, by basically a flip-flop. It's like, this is kind of the natural way how our feet are created, where you can put really something in between the toes. It's between the big toe and the second toe. And everything started from there. Then I got pregnant when I was doing my own yoga practice. By then I was living in New York. I noticed that I was extremely focused and nervous on my feet because my feet were sweating. It was winter. I was trying to wear socks, but they were not working. So I decided, okay, let's move with this sample and this idea. And then I created finally the sample, and I was like, oh, what a difference. And the teachers and the other moms to be were like, oh my God, I want a pair like this. I want a pair like that. I was like, okay, it looks like people are liking this. And then, I started contacting podiatrists, Pilates, yoga bar, martial art instructors, and everyone approved it. And then I was, what should I do now? And my husband told me, okay, what are you going to tell our daughter? That you had a brilliant idea, but you were too afraid to fail or even to try? And he's like, no, you go and try. Even if you fail, I support you. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And this is how the company started.
That's awesome. And there's so much packed in there. First, I love your husband's response to that. Like, I think we all need something like that sometimes. Like, hey, this is a great idea. Do you want to tell your daughter? You just didn't even try because you're too scared. There's almost no option to go from there except for, all right, well, I guess I'm doing this. Like, he didn't really give you an option. I love that.
Right. The other thing that he said to me was like, the ideas worth 0 without execution. So yeah. I was, yep.
Well, and you had such like a interesting background kind of leading up to that, right? So, you weren't in the foot sports industry, you weren't in productions, manufacturing, you weren't in nonprofit necessarily. You overlap some of that stuff, and now all that's kind of come to a head here. So let's go. Let's tackle the science piece first. And you talked about this a little bit a few minutes ago. But this idea of the foot brain connection. And so part of why, I want to talk about this is, we always talk about social enterprise being on a spectrum, right? So you've got the, soup kitchen on one end, you've got Patagonia on the other. And you've got this middle ground where you have some nonprofits that have earned income business streams, but they have to fundraise. And then you have some for-profits that give away all their profit and some that give away percentage. But I'm really passionate equally about, just for-profit companies thinking about the way that their work and what they do has impact. And so you got wherever you guys fall on that spectrum, one of the things you guys do is you're trying to change people's lives for the better through your product. And I think that's really important. And then, the science, like taking science and using that to serve other people through products, that's really beneficial too. So you've got the side where you're like bettering people's lives and as athletes and stuff, but then, people with this foot brain connection and nerve ending thing, that's really cool. So you unpacked it really well a minute ago, but yeah, let's dive in a little deeper on the science side and how this actually works. Like it's a superpower sock that, fixes your whole body in a sense. So dive a little deeper on that and let's unpack it some more.
Yeah. So, one of the most important things that I came to realize, and all of this I learned along the way. When I started, I thought just by instinct, it's so important to be bare feet and to integrate your feet as part of your workout. But I really didn't know exactly what science was saying about this until I started talking to podiatrists, and I realized wow, this is actually more important than I could have ever imagined. And even a podiatrist told me, Paola, you don't know what you just have created. So I started going deeper into the science, and what I found out is feet do not function independently of the body or brain. And then there is extensive research about this, and there is a proven foot-brain connection. And then it's extremely dynamic when it's activated because it allows to move with calm, certainty, security, and even get rid of pain in certain parts of the body. Most of us don't realize that actually posture really comes from the feet. If your feet are not in the right state and position, your shoulders, your hip, your neck, everything is going to change. So the other big part that we forget, and is that there are over 7,000 nerve endings in the sole of the foot. There are 26 bones, and it's a part of the body that has the biggest amount of bones. 250,000 sweat glands on the feet that can produce 4 to 6 ounces of perspiration a day if you are active in your feet. 33 joints, over 100 muscles, ligaments, and tendons. So as you can see, proportionally, the feet are small for the rest of the body, but they play a major, major role.
They do. And so I guess talk to me, we've talked a little bit in strategically working together with you guys as a client. That for the average human, that is great. Right. And so I think anybody can hear what you just said and say, wow, that relates to me. What are some of and I think we can kind of leave athletes, athletes, bar, yoga, Pilates, that whole side of the technology, the sock and what it's doing. That makes sense. Talk to me a little bit about people who might have different health conditions, and, shifting to a sock like yours would help in that realm.
Well, I think one of the most important contributions is the sensory motor control. The more you allow your feet to perceive, to sense the ground, the more connected is it to your body. And then you have all heard about earthing and how important is earthing. And that is basically going barefoot and being in contact with nature, right?
Yep.
And then it's exactly the same. There is evidence that there is a link between that, what they call haptic perception and the body movement. And in order to even you can remove headaches sometimes by rubbing your feet. And if you look at reflexology, for example, every single organ of the body can be mapped on the plant of your feet. So I think it's hard for me to tell a very specific condition because it is case by case and depending on the impact. But we have a lot of clients that cannot wear socks. For example, clients that suffer with bunions, or clients that have some type of nerve damage that in the feet, that socks are very, very hard for them to wear, but they are able to wear Tucketts. And I think everything comes from the toes. The fact that the toes are free, it keeps that contact and that freedom for the muscles, the ligaments, the nerve that are ending in the feet to keep connecting to the rest of the body. And I was reading the other day in the yoga journal, for example, about just the practicing yoga while consciously engaging and stretching your feet. And they were saying that it can help to develop balanced alignment from your feet up through the body, prevent problems like plantar fasciitis, bunions, and shin splits in the lower legs. And then and you can find online tons of articles, related to the same.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I'm always just a little bit of a nerd for products that take into the science like that. Like I and have always enjoyed that. I used to get shin splints all the time running, and when I was, I guess, in my early mid 20s, and Ultra, the shoe brand, makes a shoe with a really wide toe box, and so I went to a shoe store and I was like, man, I get shin splints. Like, is there a shoe that'll do better? And the science was like, when your toes are all cramped into like a pointed toed shoe and you're running and they're swelling, you're tensioning up your shins. And so every time your foot strikes the ground, the tension of all of that is somewhere is going to take the brunt of that tension. So if they just created a wider toe box where your toes go and it's more of like a square instead of a pointed end, that allows your toes to actually like relax. And then it takes the tension. And it is such a simple, like, so they explained it to me and I was like, yep, that makes perfect sense. Why didn't I know this? And then my shin splints were gone within a few months of running in these shoes instead. And so I just love how, we can look at science and create products to do that. And love that piece of it. So yeah.
And one big part of my observation, just as a practitioner amateur and without knowing anything about feet and socks, and it's just when I started observing toes, and the feet in particular, feet come in different shapes. And some people have web toes, some people have really separate toes, but some people, the toes are really, really kind of stick together or one on top of the other. The length of the toes is completely different from person to person.
Yeah.
So when we try to just take one shape of a sock for all feet, there is a lot of obstruction there. And then eventually that will affect your feet and your body from an anatomic perspective and from a functionality perspective as well. So our idea was like, you're doing a barefoot workout. We understand that it's important to have grips. And the cotton, our material of the socks, is moisture weakened, so will absorb sweat. But it's also equally important to allow your toes to be free and completely engaged and really let them do their job. That is basically communicating with the brain and constantly sending information to the brain to help us with our posture, our balance, our stability, our grip. Like even the shock absorption, everything comes from the feet.
Yeah. I love it, Paola. I'm a huge fan.
I know. And, this is basically an endless subject.
Yeah, well, totally. And I guess the last piece I'll kind of ask on that is like, how have, I think it's hard sometimes for products to articulate to their customer base, the science and impact of their product. And so I'm just kind of curious really quickly, like, if you're talking to other entrepreneurs that, have a science-based product like that, any tricks or big learnings you've had in terms of kind of quickly and efficiently communicating that well to potential customers so that they understand that's worked for you guys?
Yeah. One of the things so at the beginning, it was hard because Tucketts is a company that is is different from our competitors in so many ways, not only about our design, but also the values, etc. But one of the things is to telling people, hey, look at your feet when people don't want to look at the feet, because 65% of the people I talk about feet, just they don't like their feet. Like I ask you, do you like your feet? Do you feel comfortable showing your feet, Ryan?
Yeah, most people don't like their feet. We'll just leave it at that.
What about, yeah, exactly.
I have an interesting relationship with my feet because I destroy them regularly in ultimate Frisbee cleats. Yeah.
And here the thing is like, you are not deception, right? You're probably the rule. In the sense, most people don't pay attention to their feet or don't like to look at their feet. So for us, it has been telling people, hey, look at that part of the body that you don't like, right? And it goes beyond pedicures. And then, but something really interesting happened when COVID came and the first lockdown. I was like, okay, sales went down. What am I going to do? How am I challenging myself here? And one of the ways was like, okay, be the face of the company and then go out and interact more with your clients. And I start doing it through Instagram lives and interviewing our clients, followers, people that we admire, podiatrists. And then as I was interviewing them, I will always ask this question: what do you think about your own feet? And then I will get these amazing answers. Some people will explain the science behind the feet, the importance of the feet and the relation with the brain from an energetic point of view, from a scientific point of view. And I think that has helped a lot to communicate, because we just have more resources apart from us saying how things should be. But then it's just our clients are listening to other peers, people that they follow, telling them or supporting what we are saying. And I think that has been extremely positive for all. And for me, it has been a great learning opportunity.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. That's super cool. And I think it's, again, it just kind of points back to you guys looking at things through a lens of like, how do we serve people and get them to this point? And our product is a way to do that, but there's so much more than that. And that's why I wanted to ask that question. All right, everyone, I want to take a quick break from today's episode and just share a little bit about Impact Foundation, who's got an incredibly awesome model of using impact investment, charitable dollars, and funding tons of projects all over the world right now. But what if your investments could change the world? At Impact Foundation, they believe business with purpose has the power to transform society. Purpose-built for impact investing, Impact Foundation provides a streamlined way to fund businesses that seek social and spiritual transformation or make loans to charity, all while earning a financial return to grow your giving. Donors and investors have already supported more than 200 redemptive enterprises through their impact accounts. They provide needed fuel for companies that exist as a force of God's redemptive work in the world. To learn more about what they're doing in their kingdom impact investing model, visit impactfoundation.org. So kind of moving along then, let's talk about the production side. So science, you figure out all the science stuff, and then it's not just producing a product. Like, you care about it being ethically sourced material, like raw material. You care about using a factory that is ethical in how they treat their employees and how they produce products. I know you're working with a factory in Colombia, which is important to you to support, factories in other countries that are doing that and not just go to maybe China. So I guess talk to me a little bit about like the history that led up to you caring so much about ethical production, and then talk through some of the main bullet points. And maybe I just listed a couple of them of like what that means to you guys and what you're doing on that front.
Yeah. So when I moved to LA from London, I was living in London, and kind of I was trying to move into sustainability because it was a subject I was interested to. And then I did a certificate on sustainability business oriented at UCLA. And this was before even I had the idea of Tucketts. And then when the idea of Tucketts came, and because I was doing this, I said, if I'm going to build a company, I need to make it in the least harmful way. And then I'm going to take kind of the words of Yvon Chouinard, the CEO, the founder of Patagonia. And he said, like, no matter what we do, we're always going to harm nature because it's impossible not to do it. The question is, can we do things in the way that we do the least harm? And that has been such an inspiration for me, because all the time I'm questioning our processes, how we manufacture, and it's taking this sustainability equation, people plus profit plus planet. And it's how can I make sure we're growing in those three ways. And sometimes it's not proportional because it's hard to do it that way, but I decided, people, the people part of the equation for me is the most important. I need to make sure that the people that are making our socks get well paid, that there is an impact on the community, and that I also, as a business owner, I can generate employment. Right? Because I guess this is the objective of having a business. It's not only about you, it's about also your community and moving the economy forward. And then with that, I travel in China, I backpacked for a month, I visited factories, I noticed and I decided and I also noticed how the high consumption of Chinese products is killing the environment in China, and it's beautiful. I hike like high mountains in China, and then it's amazing. But then when you go and you see the rivers, they're all fully polluted. So and it's part of what we do, right? What in the way how we purchase things. So I said, no, we're going to make it in a different way, and also we cannot all become consumers. So if everyone only consumes from China, what's happening with the economies of the rest? So we're also going to become producers. And it turns out that in Colombia, Colombia has a very strong textile industry. So I found the factory that I wanted to work with there. And it turns out that this factory is very much focused on also water conservation. And for me, this was very, very important. So we did two things that are very different from our competitors and other brands. And we use recovered cotton and recycled cotton in our top sellers. We're still working on trying to expand it to an entire collection, but we chose to do it in our top sellers, and so far we have saved more than 7 million liters of water just by making that choice. And then the other part is like the factory, the way how they receive the water, when they return it back to the mainstream, it goes even cleaner. And they work with farms that develop certain bacteria that you can throw in like that dirty water, and they start cleaning it, and the water moves from tank to tank until it goes pretty well clean. It's not 100%, I have to be honest, that is like, it's extremely clear, transparent, super clean water, but actually it gets out even cleaner than the way how it was received. So I think those two things for me were very, very important. Is the impact that we're doing in terms of water, and also making sure that the factory is already paying attention to the environment and sustainability.
Yeah, Paula, that's super. It's just really interesting. There's so many angles, I guess. And, we've talked about it a lot, but hearing you talk through all that this time, I can really see like the depth of your time at UCLA and digging into that stuff, and how like everything you said made sense to me. And I was like, oh yeah, that's something to think about. but I wouldn't have that checklist readily available in my brain if I was like going to vet some production facility. Does it good fit? And so it just showcases like the depth of skill set and knowledge that you have in this area. And I think that's really important and really cool.
Another interesting example that actually was something that I learned at UCLA, one of the articles that they gave us, it's like how you pack your product in the boxes. And then IKEA is a master to do that. Like the way how IKEA packs, it maximizes the space in such a way. And then I took the same and I told the factory, no, we can fit more socks, and then our individual packaging cannot be bigger than this, because otherwise it will affect the number of socks that we fit. And it's not only about the cost of shipping that also will get reduced, but it's about the carbon footprint. The more boxes you shipped, of course, the more footprint you're going to leave behind. So that's one of the other things. The other was, for example, the factory wasn't working with sugarcane paper, and it turns out that Colombia produces sugarcane paper that comes from the sugarcane. They take the leftovers of the sugarcane, process it, and then it becomes paper. And then our packaging is made out of that. And I noticed that later on the factory is using that paper more and more with other clients or with their own brands. And then this is what my idea is about, also encouraging the people that you work with to move forward with sustainability, to embrace sustainability in different ways. And it can be something as simple as paper. Which
is just crazy and huge. And there's just so many facets, like the paper, water. I do want to go back to the people side. I think that's really important, because I think it's easy when companies outsource something to not look at them as those people as their employees, and to not have the same level of burden that they would for their own employees. So when you hire employees, you have, and you have a down month, you're like still going to pay them, and that's a burden. You want to take care of them. You want to, it's a big responsibility to have employees, for anybody to take that on. That's just tough as a business owner. And it's a really cool thing too, because you're supporting them and their families and their careers and their livelihoods and all that stuff. You're talking about, like, you have this factory that essentially you're just contracting them to do this work, but you're almost looking at their employees and saying, look, I have a responsibility. I have a burden to make sure that those people are taken care of through my work. And I think that's just taking it at a level that's really special and really cool. How do you vet that? Like, obviously you go visit a factory and they can, you and I both, you've done it more with stuff, but I've been to factories in China and Europe and India and all over the place. I've seen it, they can put on a great face for you when you show up and fly in there, right? Like, what have you learned? If there's another manufacturing company out there, like, what are some key things when you're walking through the doors of a production facility to really vet that people side out and say, like, man, what can I look for? How do I get involved consistently enough to be able to tell what's going on? What does that part look like for you? So for me, first is when you take a tour of a factory, you can see a lot. And not only about the process, the actual process, but also check where the workers eat, like the cafeteria. Is there any space for them to stretch, exercise, take breaks, go out? I mean, all those little things count a lot. Does the factory have any program to support education, housing, anything related to occupational health? So all those things you can, and those are questions that you can ask. The advantage of having a factory in Colombia, being from Colombia and speaking the same language, that probably it would have been really, really hard to do it in China or in any country where I don't speak the language, is like I have the opportunity to talk to the actual workers. And part of my success story with the factory, and maybe I'm going to move a bit out of your question, but is the ability to talk to the person that actually execute your product. And I'm going to give kind of what I call my
most successful, case or story for me. And it's when I started working with the factory, and the fact that I didn't know what I was doing because I didn't have any experience in the textile industry. It was our product had 23% rejection. And
Wow.
I will receive a production, let's say 5,000 pairs or 2,000 pairs when I was starting, that it was, very small. And then I will check every single pair. And I will take out, because I was like, every single customer deserves to have the best pair. If I cannot serve all the customers the same way, then, I'm not going to be in business. So I was very strict about quality. And then I was rejecting socks. And I realized, okay, the solution to the problem it's deeper than just a spec. And then I went to the factory and asked them to let me talk to the people on the floor, people doing the actual work, right? Like the floor level workers, let's put it this way. And then when I talked to them, I realized, of course, they don't understand what my product is because they have never made a sock like mine. They are used to making millions of socks, but they all look the same. Tucketts is a sock that looks completely different. And the fact that it doesn't have toes and the way how we hold the big toe is very specific. So they just didn't understand the concept and what the socks were for. So I took a pair of bad socks and a pair of good socks, and I asked them to take off their shoes and to put them on. And each of them will have in one foot will have a good sock, and on the other foot will have a bad sock. And I said, okay, let's do a downward dog, like a yoga pose. And they were laughing, but then by doing that exercise, they start realizing why I was rejecting the socks. And it was like night and day.
That's awesome.
It's a mind shift. If they don't understand the product, there is no spec, no communication with the managers, the supervisors, anything, because no one in the factory understood the product, from the manager to the lowest kind of level worker. And then I did the exercise with everyone in the factory. And we went from 23% rejection to 0.04%.
So really what I'm hearing from you is like, go build a unique relationship with people that are there. Like, you have to be somewhat present. You have to show them that you care. You have to build a relationship and help them understand why it's important. And, they're going to want to support your product better from that standpoint anyways. And if you have something powerfully awesome to share, like you do, it's going to make their lives better at the same time, and that's huge. Is that kind of a fair wrap up of that?
Yeah, totally. And it just like to finalize this idea and about what you're saying, engaging. And I told them, like, Tucketts is not me, Tucketts is you, actually. Your mission is to make the best products. My mission is to sell the products that you make. And the more, if your products are great, I'm going to sell more. So we're working together. And if I grow, we all grow. And for me, it's this win-win situation. And this is how I have always worked with the factory. And it has been challenging. I mean, there is always a challenge here or there, but I believe there is always a solution, but the solution comes from a change in mindset.
Yeah, I love it. And I just love how multifaceted the production side is for you, from hiking mountains in China to seeing the rivers to caring about how paper is used to the people side. It's awesome, Paola. And I know you've had, leaders like Yvonne Chenard from Patagonia that you've researched, and you obviously did a huge background with that at UCLA, and also you just as a person, you care about these things deeply. And so it's very cool to see all those come together. I think there's a lot people can just take away from that. And even, my hope is that there's people manufacturing some product through some third party or something, and they listen to this episode and they're like, wow, very cool. Didn't think of that angle. We should do that. And it's really helpful. So kind of with that, so the last bucket I wanted to talk about with you, and then we can kind of wrap up our time, was just your heart to give back. So you're already giving back by having a product that helps people's feet and well-being. You're giving back by taking care of the environment and helping to care for people and production and all those things. And then you were also, and I'd be curious, I want to hear a little bit of why on this, but you also said, I don't really want to have a company if we don't donate some of the profits to make the world a better place. You're already making the world a better place, and then you decided to add that on there. Talk to me a little bit about where that came from, where you said, I want to trim a percentage of profits off every year to support some sort of organization that needs funding. Talk to me a little bit about like where that came from in your heart and why you want to do that. And then, I know that you guys are a growing business. We won't throw out your revenue numbers, but you guys are a sizable organization, and your opportunity to philanthropically give is growing every year. But maybe just share an example of one of the organizations as well that you guys have supported so far.
Right. Well, for me, is going back to the equation of people, profit, and planet. Right. In the people part of the equation is community, and then the traditional kind of all corporate social responsibility is about giving back in a charitable way. Right. My corporate social responsibility is giving back from different perspectives, also from kind of an environmental point of view. But so I always believed that giving back is just necessary, is a motivation for the employees, for me. And overall is whenever you or anyone buys a pair of Tucketts, they are not only buying a pair of socks, they are buying way more, because they are creating impact through their purchase. And then instead of sometimes people don't know where to donate, don't know how to really impact, or just that part of workings with nonprofit is not part of their mission, but they can do it through how they buy, through their purchase. Anything that we buy, anything has a negative or a positive impact somewhere in the chain. So my idea was like, okay, let's create a positive impact. And finally, let's define a percentage of our profit. Now we're giving 5% of our net profit to an organization called the Jordan Thomas Foundation. And basically, we're giving feet to those who don't have them. Tuckett is all about feet, but we also can provide feet and change the life of a kid. So through prosthetics, if you give a kid a pair of prosthetics or one, depending on what they need, it's a life of possibilities versus being on a wheelchair. And then prosthetics are not always covered by the insurance companies. And if they are covered, there are a lot of limitations, and prosthetics, especially in kids, change in the same way how they change the shoes, right? Like almost every year you have to buy a new size of shoes for your kids. This is the same that you have to do with prosthetics. And a prosthetic can be up to $50,000, and then the processes, sorry. And then so we're working with the Jordan Thomas Foundation to do this, to help provide kids that suffer from limb loss with prosthetics, and for them to have a life of possibilities. In the past, this year we decided to take just one organization and really focus on that in order to grow our impact. But in the past years, every collection has a theme, an inspiration, and then from the proceeds of that collection will go up to a particular NGO or nonprofit organization that was related to that collection. So, for example, last spring, we launched our Totally in Bloom collection, and then the percentage of the profit went to an organization that works with bees. And then, for example, our last summer, it was the Open Seas collection. So we make a donation to Oceania, and they work in reestablishing the ecosystems in the ocean ecosystems. And then, and in particular, we donated for a project that is related about artisanal fisheries. Because again, for me, it's like, if people are not, don't have any stability, by default, the environment is going to be harmed. And there is no doubt about that. So it's like, the more we take care about people, I think the less harmful we are to the environment.
And one of the things I love most about all that, Paola, is how you've integrated the business lines into that. Like, it wasn't just, okay, we made, and I'm all for projects that do this. I just think you guys have taken it a step further. So a lot of projects will say, hey, for every, 10% of our gross profits are going to go to X and we'll donate it. You guys have found a cool way to involve your customer base in that, to let them be part of it. And I feel that with Patagonia. I wear a lot of Patagonia stuff because I appreciate what they do for the environment. I know it's ethically sourced. I know it's going to last a long time. I mean, they basically hooked me on the Kool-Aid, and I'm just a Patagonia junkie. And I live in the mountains, and the stuff works really well. So overall, I love Patagonia. But there's an element of it that, like, when I buy something from Patagonia, I know that they're spending that profit. Like, I don't care how they can take plenty of that profit and go buy yachts or boats or do stuff, but I know that they're using a percentage of that profit to do good, which means I feel like I'm participating in that. And I feel like you guys have gone an extra level to do that, something similar, where you say, hey, like, this collection is going to do this, and you just involve your customer base in that. That's just really good business principle, because you're creating that kind of, like, I know people hate the word tribe, but you're creating that tribe loyalty mentality where people are really interested in what you're doing on that front, which is awesome. So it's super cool to hear what you guys are doing, and your heart for the even this prosthetic legs, and how you guys are overlapping the science of what you're doing with the organizations you're supporting. So super cool stuff all around.
Yeah, for me, and I think every organization should think on the why, right? When I read Simon Sinek about find your why, and it resonated a lot with me about, why do you do what you do and what for, right? And then you take care of the how, but is why are you doing that? And this is when every time we ask ourselves that question, we're creating a new collection. And many of those collections are also related to our trip. For example, tomorrow we're launching our new Fierce collection, and it's inspired by wild animals in the Serengeti National Park in Tanzania. And then I had the opportunity to go and see them, and be there after I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And for me, it's just amazing that Tucketts also takes me, to these amazing places and helps me to make my dreams come true.
It's awesome to hear. And it's been cool to be on the journey with you, Paola, on that front. And so if people want to buy a pair of socks or learn more, they can go to your website. We'll drop it in the notes, right? Is there any other ways that they can get in touch or learn more about you guys?
Yeah, like follow us on Instagram, social, Facebook, Pinterest, at Love Tucketts, LOVE, and then TUCKETTS. And then let's do something. Let's do a giveaway for your listeners. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that'd be fun. Or some sort of discount code. Yeah, that'd be cool, or something like that. So we'll figure that out. We'll put it in the show notes for this episode. So if you've made it to the end and you've listened to the whole thing, check the show notes and you'll see whatever it is that we come up with in there. And that'll be a ton of fun. Well, Paola, thanks so much for joining. I love the work you guys are doing. I'm thankful to be in it with you guys. And thank you for sharing just your heart and how you've blended all that stuff. It's a really motivating story and really cool to hear.
Yeah, no, thank you for the invitation and for having me today. I appreciate this.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to another week of the Feast Over Famine podcast. We are so thankful you guys are here and listening. As always, hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast listening apps. We would love to keep you guys up to date on new episodes that are coming out, when we're launching new episodes, when we're launching new seasons, and everything in between. So when we're in season, episodes are dropping every single Wednesday. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're up to date. Also, if you're loving what we're doing, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, where we're constantly posting about our projects, what they're doing, what kinds of things we're working on. We'll recycle some podcasts, things about our partners, all sorts of fun stuff that you want to see. So hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, and check out what we're doing there. And yeah, we're stoked that you guys are listening. We hope this has been really fruitful, and we will catch you guys next week. And lastly, as you guys all know, we always talk about all sorts of things with impact investing, investment opportunities, entity structure modeling, how projects are getting capital. And as a disclaimer and a reminder, Feast Over Famine does not provide legal, tax, accounting, or other professional advice. You should consult professional advisors concerning the legal, tax, or accounting consequences of any activities related to your project or a project you're supporting. Feast Over Famine doesn't consult, advise, or assist with the offer or sale of securities in any capital raising transaction. We don't do that for the direct or indirect promotion or maintenance of a market for any securities. And Feast Over Famine does not engage in any activities for which an investment advisor's registration or license is required under the U.S. Investment Advisors Act of 1940 or under any other applicable federal or state law, or for which a broker's or dealer's registration or license is required under the U.S. Securities Exchange Act of 1934 or under any other applicable federal or state law. So there's your investment disclaimer. Hopefully that's helpful if you need it. And if you ever have any questions on that side of things, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Take care.